Alrighty, good morning everyone. We just want to welcome you to our Sunday school. We are in session 11 in the season study of the book of Proverbs. And we're going to be in chapter 31. We're going to look at verses 10 through 16 and also 23 through 31. So if you go ahead and get your Bibles. I'm going to be reading out of the Christian Standard Bible, but you get whatever Bible that you are familiar with, you're accustomed to. It's got a question when we want to think about today's lesson. It says, share about a time when you became aware that someone was watching you. How did you respond when you realized they were doing so? As kids, we might grow up thinking that nobody's watching us. In fact, America's Funniest Home Videos, that show was about eavesdropping, not eavesdropping, but maybe catching somebody in the act of doing something without necessarily knowing that stuff was going on. There were some videos on there that they were trying to film and impress people, but the funniest ones was because no one was around and no one knew what was going on, and there just happened to be a camera on and a funny event happened, right? Most of us go through our days and carry out our tasks without realizing or without thinking somebody may be watching. We would be surprised if we found out somebody had been watching us while we would go through the day. We would be even more shocked if our observer addressed how we managed our time and the specific challenges we faced. The study, let's see, 31, it says 30 and 31 can be divided into two sections. The first section in chapter 30, in the first verse, a person named Agur is identified as the writer of the Proverbs in the chapter. Bible scholars don't know the identity of Agur. Some scholars have suggested he may have been Solomon himself. Others think he could have been one of the many individuals who served Solomon to collect the Proverbs. He acknowledged his inability to know much about God on his own. Then he proclaimed that God's word alone provided trustworthy insight into God's character and ways. He went on to ask God to keep deceitful words away from him. He asked the Lord to keep him from being either rich or poor. If he was rich, he pondered that he wouldn't need to call on God. If he was poor, he was concerned that he would begin to think that God didn't care about him. And that's a good contrast when we're reading that, because it takes us back to maybe our understanding before God came into our life, right? We might have cast off things, events that happened to us as maybe, oh, that's just whatever happened, or good things as claiming as our own. And in fact, after we come to know Jesus, after we come to know the Lord, the bad things sometimes are events put in our lives so that we can get stronger. But then the good things are sometimes events that God has blessed us with for remaining committed to Him, right? Being obedient. Not necessarily about our own ability, but our ability to stay in His path, stay in His will. The second section it includes 31. The writer identifies himself as King Lemuel. Like Agur, his identity remains a mystery. He credited his mother for the proverbs in this chapter. She presented him with 3 valuable instructions that he should put into practice as he reigned over his kingdom. First, she instructed him to avoid the temptation to use his power as a means to engage in immorality and to destroy another king. Second, she taught him to stay sober by insisting that alcohol would have a negative effect on the decisions he would make as king. And third, she directed him to use his authority as king to speak up for powerless people and to seek justice for them. Lemuel also provided a poem about a wife of noble character. The wife in the poem exhibited wisdom, foresight, initiative, and determination. She played a significant role in her husband's good reputation because of the way she invested her life. She deserved to be respected. In verse 10, it says, "Who can find a wife of noble character? She is far more precious than jewels." A wife of noble character is difficult to find, and a wise husband who experiences the blessing that comes by having such a woman in his life considers himself to be most fortunate. He sees her victorious nobility in goodness, intelligence, foresight, devotion, and resolve. These traits blend together to provide the portrait of a wife of impeccable excellence. For that reason, she's compared to the most precious stones anyone could find. They are rare, she is too. When the comparison has been completed, she's found to be worth more than jewels like rubies, diamonds, or pearls. In other words, she's priceless. Ruth served an Old Testament example of a woman who had distinguished herself by her character. Boaz used the same Hebrew word for noble in his description of Ruth. When people in the days of the Old Testament used this word to describe a man, they had in mind the character trait of valor or heroism. Ruth's reputation as a person of noble character had become known to everyone in Bethlehem who knew her. The heart of her husband trusts in her, verses 11 and 12, and he will not lack anything good. She rewards him with good, not evil, all the days of her life. Again, we see examples and traits that we would want to see in a relationship. This is talking about a wife, the companion to a man, and what it would look like if she were to be an example of somebody who followed God. Because of her commitment to their marriage, he doesn't lack for anything. The Hebrew word for anything good brings to mind the plunder that a victorious army would bring home after a battle. Imagine the riches that would be gathered from the defeated army and the wealth to be taken home from a fallen kingdom. Imagine, too, the joyful surprise on the faces of everyone back home when they beheld the plunder a victorious army brought to them. The husband of a noble woman enjoys that kind of surprise when he sees that she's able to bring into his life. And we see this comparison here because there are going to be battles for the whether it's a young or old couple, and we see where this is kind of saying plunder or riches, but we could use another word as in blessings. Whenever a couple sticks together and stays through tough things, any kind of circumstances, we see rewarding benefits after the situation, right? We see trust erodes. We see maybe a little bit of give and take. Maybe that nurtures that relationship, and where skills are brought out and maybe skills are improved, right? We see where, much like a army going to battle, the people back home have to help supply them, have to help take care of them. And so when they are reunited, we see where people are not just joyous, but grateful that they have somebody that they can count on so they can do their own mission. In the same way, a couple should be able to count on their companion. In this respect, this is talking about a husband being able to have a good wife that supports him in what he's doing. It goes the other way around too, but this is talking about the woman. Living with a woman of excellent character makes the life of her husband most rewarding. In your church family, this is a question here. In your church family, who comes to mind when you think about the woman described in these verses? We think about our church moms, our devoted Christian women that are in leadership positions, maybe Sunday school teachers, worship leaders, maybe the ones who go out and cook, or maybe the ones who go out and clean and take care of the church. Even those ones who actually go out and minister, right? The ones who are felt led to go and do those things. We see those types of people. She selects, verse 13, she selects wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from far away. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her husband and portions for her female servants. She evaluates a field and buys. She plants a vineyard with her earnings. In the days of Solomon, a woman earned a reputation of noble character by staying busy with projects that would benefit her family. And we see this even today. We see where there is a misconception of equality out there, but it's good that if able, because it's different than in these times, if able, that the woman stays home, or even the man. I mean, there's different situations out there, but whoever stays home and takes care of the house and benefits their family with what they're doing, that is what this is trying to promote, right? And again, we know that there's situations out there, women are skilled just as men, and they can do some of the things and earn a living and all that, and so the husband can do these things. But what he's specifically talking about is in that relationship. The husband can count on the wife to be able to provide for their family. When Solomon ruled over the kingdom of Israel, he extended the reach of commerce by building a fleet of ships. The ships would set out for sail, or would set out for foreign lands in search of trade. They returned home filled with supplies that would be sold to the people of Israel. At the same time, merchant ships from other nations would bring treasures to sell in Solomon's kingdom. The merchant ship was a fitting image of a woman of noble character who provided her family with what they needed. She would provide her family food that came from far away. In other words, she would extend her reach to the farthest corners of the world in order for her family to have what they needed. She would exchange items she made with her hands for whatever she couldn't produce by herself. And this could be compared to today. Our rural communities don't necessarily have everything that is available inside the town, inside the city limits, so to speak. We might have to go outside and get things. Trying to use a comparison here. But if there was a shortage of food, or if there was something that we needed in another town, right, they would be the ones to go and get it. the woman of noble character would go out and get what they needed and bring it back. Likewise, they would, and this is where that distinction of different times. If they had the ability, they wouldn't rely. They would go out and do what they could to be able to provide for their family. If that's a job, if that's a skill set that's unique to that person, then they should go and pursue it. See, right here, it's not talking about just staying at home. It's saying providing and benefiting the family that they're in charge of. Solomon had warned God's people to abhor laziness and to embrace industry. A lazy person with no initiative would sleep well into the morning. A woman with noble character would greet the day well before sunrise. Her industrious nature would prompt her to be up and at it early in the morning. She would pay close attention to making sure her family had breakfast. She had also gave the same attention to her female servants. The Hebrew word for portions could have referred to food. She wanted to be sure that her servants had something to eat. It could also have been a reference to duty. She would plan her work and instruct her servants on the tasks she expected them to complete before the end of the day. Taken either way, the word implied her initiative in directing people in her home so that they would be properly nourished and instructed. See, the team around this woman of noble character, she had to take care of the team as well. And right there, it says that it could mean two different things, but in all, it's taking care of what she needed to do to be able to, again, benefit her family. We're talking about something that she is doing for her family. Providing food for her servants or providing work so that the work could get done, so that they could all prosper, so that they can all benefit. Providing for the needs of her family would prompt a woman of excellence to engage in profitable business ventures. Her business savvy could be seen in a way that she carefully evaluates a piece of property that had been placed on the market. She would inspect it to see if purchasing it would be profitable. She didn't think about the purchase of the property in terms of personal luxury or self-indulgence. Instead, she only thought in the terms of how the property would provide what her family needed. For that reason, she estimated the potential productivity of the land if she grew a vineyard on it. This verse sheds light on the industrious ways of God's people who trust Him and seek His wisdom. We're determined to provide for our families. We're determined to provide for our families, and we're always looking for the most prudent way to do it. That's an interesting word on the interesting use on prudent, but prudence would lend itself to maybe thinking about engaging in things that aren't good. On the contrary, on the opposite side, on the other hand, prudence is just thinking about what you're doing before you go and do it. Aspect of the business knowledge, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's like skilled, or it's not saying that she took classes or anything like that. What she was saying, or what it's saying, is that she looked for the way it could benefit her family. And in purchasing the land, right, if they could build a house and then they had farmland, she would think about those things before going purchasing it and evaluating whether or not this piece of land is good or this piece of land is good. And that's how we need to be able to look at what we need in life as good stewards of God's money and what will benefit our family the most. And we're not talking about riches. We're not talking about wealth like what is said here. It's not about gaining for our own. It's about contributing to God's overall mission. If that's providing for our family and then providing for others, then so be it. If that's just providing for ourselves and making ends meet there, that's good too. And that's exactly what he's saying here, is that everybody is involved. This isn't saying, and you know, like I said, out there's a misconception of the way work is separated out, so to speak. But this is saying that the woman is important too. The woman is important in those decisions. The woman is important in the actual tasks. sure in her reputation in the next verses that we're going to look at. We're going to skip ahead to 23. And it says, her husband is known in the city gates where he sits among the elders of the land. She makes and sells linen garments. She delivers belts. She delivers belts to the merchants. Her strength and honor are her clothing, and she can laugh at the time to come. Her mouth speaks wisdom, and loving instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the activities of her household and is never idle. This is talking about reputation, and we're going to go ahead and kind of briefly go over this part. But basically, what we're going to end up in this next part is this question. And let's go ahead and ask this question. It says, what kind of influence for the Lord does your reputation have on others? Those verses try to generate this thought that the lady... I wouldn't say is talked about in that type of mindset or in that type of attitude or words, but that she is recognized. Right there, that first verse, it says, her husband is known at the city gates where he sits among the elders. Where is your companion? Where is your wife? Where is your husband? That's the kind of questions that people usually talk, gossip. Well, we don't gossip, but we talk about, right? We communicate, and we just might be curious. We're not necessarily trying to say anything, but there might be a curiosity there, and that's the point. Where is our wife? Where is our husband? Because they will be known for the things that they do. Just like us Christians, when we give an account for Jesus, we have to also give account to other people. And if we're contributing to overall society, if we're contributing to the church, if we're contributing to our community, it will be known, right? And that goes along with our significant other, our wives, our marriages, our couples. Instead of wasting her days on self-indulgent luxury, she takes the initiative to manage her days wisely. Guiding others under supervision, as well as managing her own projects, requires her to make the best use of her time. Therefore, she's never idle. She never takes a break when it comes to caring for her family or attending to her responsibilities. Her industrious approach to each day serves as a worthwhile model for believers. A commitment to work, coupled with good stewardship of time, helps to nourish a good reputation that speaks well of our relationship with the Lord. In turn, our reputation serves as a way to have a positive impact on others for Christ. So you see, the way we go about life, that's that beacon, that's that light, that's that guiding light for everybody else to look at. And if our God is directing our path, see, if our God is directing our path, then we can be a good reflection of Him. If we can point other people that are interested in what we're doing to Him. Verse 28 says, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Many women have done noble deeds, but you surpass them all. Verse 30, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. In verse 31, give her the reward of her labor and let her works praise her at the city gates. You see, those things that are talked about will point people to God. Verse 30 right there, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. Now, we all want to be good-natured towards people. We all want to treat people with respect. But charm, when we try to gloss over things, maybe bring a brighter attitude than what is needed to somebody just to have a good conversation. That's what charm is. And you see those those in I think it's India or one of those ones in the Far East over there. Those cultures they will play music and charm the snakes. But once you stop that, those snakes return back to what they're meant to do, right? Devour and kill. Uh, they charm some of the craziest. It's just crazy, right? But that charm only goes so far, and that's what it's saying here. Is charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. We all look cute at one point or another when we was babies, but as we get older, as we tend to age, that stuff goes away. Now we might become uh, more how you would say it, more pleasing to the eye by using makeup, using all these types of things, but we're still getting older, right? We're not gonna be able to do all that stuff. It might take us longer, right? But it goes away. That beauty and anything that we see as beautiful, except for what was referred to earlier, jewels and precious stones, is going to gradually fade over time. That beauty is going to fade over time. It says, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. You see, all throughout here, the writer even mentioned Ruth. See, Ruth feared the Lord. Ruth stayed in God's will, and because of that, she is still praised to today. And there's many other women in the Bible that are praised to today. Give her the reward of her labor and let her works praise her at the city gates. Again, we're talking about that reputation, what it means to be a follower of Christ. And for a woman who takes care of her family like that, that's what's going to be at the forefront of people's mind when they think of that name, that work that she does. And then going back to verses 28 and 29, it says, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Many women have done noble deeds, but you surpass them all. And that's why on Mother's Day, it's really important to recognize our mothers that stay in the Word, stay with the Lord, and do the stuff that benefits their family, because that's what God called us all to do, in that we should serve Him to the best of our ability, and that we will be blessed. The same way the woman will be blessed by sticking to that. So, let's see. How do you honor other believers who show that they live to honor the Lord? And this is that fellowship. We're going to wrap up on this. This is that fellowship, in that we should all be striving to build one another up. Instead of tear each other down, we should be building each other up, so that, again, so that we can be those beacons of light in this world. And it's simply saying, how do you do that? How do you honor other believers? We want to praise them publicly if you want, but praise them and let them know that they're doing a good job. That communication, even that little thank you, I appreciate what you're doing, that's going to go a long way in building that relationship and furthering God's mission in what He's called us out to do, is make disciples, teach them, baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So we're going to be live here in about 23 minutes. And so stay tuned in. For all of our church members out there, our Tithely, you can download Tithely. It's tithe.ly. The app, you can make your contributions there. For all those other ones that want to do that, you go on our Facebook page, go on our website, offthepews.com. There's a link on there. We're going to have some music. We're going to have some good preaching. And so stay tuned in, and then we'll get that all taken care of.